welfare as the next decade begins.
So this morning we're asking, is it really time? Do we have any choice but to crack down on benefits?
Joining us now is Research Associate for the Adam Smith Institute, Viggo Terling, and academic and broadcaster Lisa McKenzie. Good morning to you both. If I can ask you, Viggo, is it time for a crackdown on benefits then?
Good morning. And yes, it certainly is. And I was deeply unsurprised by this forecasted increase in the disability benefit claimant rate. And I think it shows the extent to which an overgenerous welfare system cannot coexist in a country like Britain that is facing its highest tax burden on record. And American economist Arthur Laffer makes clear as to why. We use sin taxes on things like cigarettes and alcohol to deter people from smoking and drinking. But that same effect can be applied to income and employment. When we overly tax those two things, we can discourage people from employing others, we can discourage people from working. And you can also reach a double negative that occurs when you both do those things and you also give people money to not work. And that is the situation that has befallen us in Britain. We now have a welfare system that, rather than ensuring against misfortune, it is actively replacing work. And the result of that is a three-child family in Tower Hamlets can earn up to £82,000 a year on benefits alone. A person claiming housing benefit, the PIP and universal credits, can earn £3,000 more than a full-time minimum wage worker. The issue with this is the generosity of our welfare system is encouraging people to remain economically inactive. In fact, we are the only G7 country to be more economically inactive than before the pandemic, and 50% of those on disability benefits fear joining the workforce if it means they will lose their benefits and have it taken away from them. So therefore, yes, the welfare system needs reform to both boost productivity.
All right, thanks, Viggo. Lisa, what do you make of that? I mean, it's a fair point, isn't it, when your work doesn't pay, when actually it is economically more beneficial for people not to work.
Yeah, and you know what? I would agree with that, because work doesn't pay, and that's the point. That our jobs market at the moment is terrible. This idea that somehow people are going to get off benefits and go into work that's going to pay is a nonsense. Where I live in the Red Wall in Nottinghamshire, the unemployment here is very high. Underemployment is extremely high, because what we didn't talk about is the amount of people who are claiming benefits but are also in work as well. So in the 1980s, and I know probably Viggo won't know this, but the Thatcher government, what she did is she moved people off unemployment benefit into disability benefit to hide the unemployment figures. Now, this has always happened with government. They try to hide unemployment figures, and I would argue that that is still happening today. The million people that we've got who are young and not in work, they're unemployed, and they're unemployed because the levels of decent work out there is very low. And when we can talk about roles, but these aren't jobs. I'm talking about full-time, decent jobs that would afford you dignity. Those jobs are not out there. And so, therefore, that's why people are sort of moving on to disability benefits, because it is the only way for them to survive. So,
can I just interrupt you for just a moment there, Lisa? Because actually, if Viggo is right, I haven't looked at the figures, but if you can actually get £82,000 a year on benefits, frankly, you wonder whether anybody would. Why is anybody bothering to work?
What Viggo's done is taken the worst case scenario. That's what he's done. Most people do not earn that, because we do have a benefit cap. So there is a cap to how much you can actually get on benefits. But if you've got PIP, you've got various other disabilities, you've got Motability Card, if you have got everything, which is very few people, then yes, your benefits will probably soar. But for most people, that's not what is happening. So it is a bit disingenuous to use that worst case scenario. Okay. What I would rather see, and rather talk about, is employment and skills. How are we going to get people into work? Where are those jobs? And are they real jobs?
Will you focus on upgrading your warp engines to reach star systems and planets unknown? Will you prioritize upgrading your armaments to deal with threats that might arise? Or will you focus on a more evasive route and build impenetrable...
Fair points. And you've got to have the jobs, you've got to be able to pull people into work. Would that, in your mind, reduce the number of people who want to claim, or do we still need to really crack down and tighten the criteria on who can claim disability benefits?
Yes, well, put simply, we do. Because, as I explained in my sort of opening remarks, an over-generous welfare state discourages people from entering the labour market. But also, regarding the topic of unemployment specifically, our welfare state is not fit for purpose in that regard either. If you look at a country like Sweden, for example, where I currently am, Sweden's welfare state is far more fit for purpose in terms of getting people from unemployment back into the workforce. In fact, that figure is about at 90% compared to Britain, where that figure has fallen from 30 to 20% of people who regain employment after 12 months. So we don't just have an issue with welfare stifling productivity, but our actual welfare state, the one we currently have, is not fit for purpose in terms of actually helping people get back into employment and contributing again to the economy as they should be doing.
Just very briefly then, what do they do there that we don't do, that you say is much more fit for purpose?
Yeah, so in Sweden, a system they use in Sweden, which I think is far better to the one we have in the UK, is that in Sweden you have a voluntary, broadly privately managed income insurance-based unemployment benefits, if you want to call it that. How it functions is people in Sweden, 73% of the workforce, in fact, they contribute a small portion of their salary to this insurance scheme. And then when they become unemployed, that is what pays into their unemployment benefit. And what's good with the scheme in Sweden is that it has a taper off and it finishes after 300 days. So it creates a sense of urgency for unemployed individuals to get back into the workforce. And that is why Sweden has such a drastically higher percentage of people that are employed again after about 12 months.
OK, right, we do have to leave it there, you two, I'm afraid, because we're out of time. But Viggo Terling, Lisa Mackenzie, good to talk to both of you this morning. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
I'll tell you what I found interesting with that is they both agree there's a problem. It's whether it's chicken and egg, isn't it?
Or carrot and stick. Or
carrot and stick. You know, do you increase the number of jobs and what you pay to get people out of benefits, or do you reduce the benefits to get people into work? Yeah. And you take your choice on what you